with our event today. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ranga's report launch event. I thank each and every panelist who have joined us today and all the attendees who have taken out their time from the busy schedule and have joined us for this program this evening. Basically, we are here to talk about the insights from the report that the RANGRA has taken out about the concerns of parents in the digital space and the excess use of internet by children. So, in this digital era, when there isn't a choice to function, but to be online, and this has also led with multiple concerns with increased use of internet. So parents, children, every elderly, everybody is so engrossed and engaged in their virtual lives. So to deepen our thoughts and our understanding, to build an understanding on this, Ranga, in collaboration with Institute of Governance, Policies and Politics, Social Media Matters, and Youth Online Learning Organization, we conducted a nationwide survey where we gathered a great response from the participants. So for this, I would like to thank each and every respondent who took part in this research and helped us in giving the insights for this research. Um, I'm grateful to have all the panelists and eminent speakers with us who have joined us from across the globe to share their experience and expertise in this field. For the first panel, I would like to introduce our speakers, Ms. Ambika Khurana from Netflix. She is the Public Policy Director at Netflix India and specializes in government affairs and strategic planning, focusing on advocacy for developing policies critical to technology, media, and entertainment sectors. Welcome, Ms. Ambika. Next, we have Mr. Sameer Hinduja, who is a professor in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Florida Atlantic University, and also a co-founder, co-director of the Cyber Bullying Research Center. He is recognized internationally for his groundbreaking work on subjects of cyberbullying and safe social media use. Thank you and welcome, Sameer, for joining us today. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Manish Tiwari, who has done his PhD in sociology from JNU and also has expertise in public policy, research, and journalism, and is also a co-founder of Ranga. Welcome, Dr. Manish. And with this, I would like to invite Dr. Manish to share some insights from the report. What has been the insights that we have studied from this report? If you could share a few from the report. You will have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Pratishtha. Thank you, everyone, for joining the panel. Ms. Ambika, Professor Sameer Khurana, Sameer Hinduja, thank you so much for joining this thing and for IGPP to be part of this report and everybody else on this panel and the coming section of this panel. So I would like to first talk a little about the context in which we have faced. Most of us are parents. I myself have a daughter and a son. And one of the biggest concerns as of now is the internet use and the use of the devices by kids. No, we never know what are they doing, how are they doing, what is the content which is there. And this is just a concern which is not a concern of only educated parents, but for everyone. And for parents who are, am I audible, Pratishtha? All okay? Okay, thank you. So for them, the concern is much more higher for the parents who are rather not so educated, and which is a large section of our society. We, along with IGPP, Social Media Matters, and YOLO, we did this survey in which the major objective which we had in mind was to understand the concerns of parents, because in day-to-day language discussion. We have a lot of talk about between mothers, between parents that they are concerned, but we really wanted to know what are their exact concerns about the engagement with the internet and the technology, and what are the kind of experiences, what if they have some positive or negative experiences. And second, we wanted to know that, to understand the parental use and their experience of different technology of online safety. Because in online safety, it's an area we have so many things on the browsers, on our devices, but we hardly know a lot of them in fact. And third was to know, the challenge it is the parents face using the technology. There are a lot of tools available on each platform, on each browser, on each OTT, on everywhere, but parents don't really know how to use them or not. So to have a kind of, I would say, a more objective scientific data, we had worked on this survey, and IGPP later, Dr. Mr. Basu would be explaining more about the methods and everything. I would largely talk about the major findings. So we have found that, out of 666 parents which we had interviewed, about 64% of the parents think that their sons and daughters are spending more time on the internet than necessary. It's always a debate between parents and their children. Parents would always say we are using it too much, and kids would say no, it's necessary. It's enough that we are doing it. And so the exact figure which we have got is around at least 64%, which is a huge number. Then we have found that 54% of parents have expressed their concerns over the behavior of their children. They do not really understand what do they do on internet, or what are the kind of impact they are having because of this excess use of internet. So we had put the questions in a different way, and we have found that 37% of parents reported that their children have stopped or reduced their extracurricular activity because of the use of the devices and internet. 23% parents reported that their children have reduced socializing with other students and other children, or maybe, whatever their peers are. 17% reported a drop in concentration resulting in the exam performance. Because it's not just classes which they are doing online. There is a lot of stuff on social media and everything. When we talk about the impact of lockdown, 88%, which is a huge number. Parents are saying that, their children are using it for more than 4 hours. They feel that, it is sometimes a kind of addiction, a habit, which is a very huge number. And one of the concerns, like what do they watch or what not, 35% parents have, they are they know that their children, they are not engaged in watching porn or maybe, something which is not really so good. So only 35% are sure that no. 65% say we can't say, they might be watching it. Then we have talked about the kind of, child lock facilities, or maybe stopping of certain content on their browsers. So 20% children, parents, 30% parents have said that, they are aware, but they have never used it. 6%, only 6% have tried their hands on them, but could not follow the process. And 20% parents, they say that they don't really know if there is any such thing on either OTT or maybe a device. So this is a huge number. Next is almost 84% parents have discussed issues related to cyber addiction and cyber security with their children. They are saying that they are talking about it, but they don't really find the way. And overwhelming majority of 92% of parents, they are saying that they would really appreciate if the schools would take some initiative towards educating their children regarding cybersecurity, regarding how to use it. Then when we ask them who is responsible, who should help them out, they said almost 60% said that the big tech firms they should do something. Maybe Facebook, Google, Twitter, or like platforms. They should do something about it. And almost a little more on number on that, more than that, 68% parents have said that the government has a responsibility in this matter. Now, this is like, these two about the government and the big tech. These are two real concerns. Like people are expecting them to do something. So, when we are having discussion, we had a lot of discussion with quite many stakeholders from different walks, and one of them was also a member of parliament, Mr. Mahesh Poddar, who is MP from Rajya Sabha. And he's the person who has already raised an issue about the OTT content. He raised a question in the parliament, and out of that, a lot of things have started kind of, snowballed. So, Pratishtha, we have that clip ready, or we would be including it later? Yeah.
States, the advisory, regulations, rules, everything will be there, and there may be something is already there, and there will be more. But what is important, what I believe, is that they can always find a way out to shortcut and sabotage the whole process. See, what is important now is that the people who know it, they should restrain themselves and they come forward, and by themselves they help the society, and that, okay, look, this is what is the new thing, this is what we are introducing, this is how we do it, and let's not take it granted and leave it to them that they are it is their responsibility. I mean, like for example, OTT platforms or social media, we can't just leave it to and expect the people to know everything. They won't. And then there are kids who can, or even the elderly people who can be affected by these information things, because internet is knowledge, and when you talk of knowledge, you can't have the knowledge in compartments. It's a total knowledge about everything from every part of the world. Even ancient history can be reproduced. So that is the thing, that so much of knowledge is available. Now, yes, the people who want to use it, they have to be selective, but let's not expect today knowledge is available in everybody's hand. Every mobile has the total access to everything. Now there has to be a system. Now, how the government is going to impose it, I don't know, but I am sure it will not be through the rules and regulation and acts or law enforcing authorities. It has to be done by their own. And we must appreciate one thing, that by and large, people in India, a lot number of parents are still first generation users of internet or digital technology, first generation, and they are still learning. Rather, the kids are much more knowledgeable than their parents. So if the parents can lock it, the children will always find a way to unlock it. And I think your survey has also revealed that most of the parents have said that they are not sure if their children are watching porn and all that. They are not sure, because I'm happy that they are honest. They are not sure, because the kids will definitely, if they are watching, only 3% have admitted that they are sure. But rest, majority of them, a big majority, I think 60-65% people have said no, they are not sure. So that means they have a doubt that my kid is watching, but he's not able to find out.
Pratishtha, give me a second. The house was in motion, like it was running, and it was just adjourned a few minutes back. So Mr. Poddar might join us around 7:05. If we could connect to him, he is on his way back to his home. Until then, I think we can keep our discussion going, and if he joins us, then we would also bring him on. So please carry forward.
Certainly. It would be really nice to have him with us for this discussion, because we all are talking, we're talking about a very important topic today, about how parents needs to be sensitized and how we can parent unlock it. So we know the tricks to how to unlock it. They're so tech savvy. And thank you, Dr. Manish, for sharing the insights from the report. I'm sure the numbers are hard hitting. To ask a question with to Ambika about when we talk about like a large majority of people have talked about how big companies and government play a very crucial role when we talk about cyber safety and online safety and security of children on OTT platforms and social networking sites. So I would like to, how can basic categorize content for the children when we talk about OTT platform? Specifically when it comes to Netflix, and are there any ways to do so?
Thank you, Pratishtha. I think you've asked a great set of questions, and let me try and respond to each one of them. Thank you also, Mr. Tiwari, for your very valuable words. I think these data points are very, very important, and they are the guiding light for all of us in the industry, as professionals, as parents, as citizens, to absorb, to get a better and deeper understanding of where we stand today. How many people are actually using these controls, how many parents actually know what children are doing, etc. So these are very valuable data points, qualitative and quantitative, which help services like ours continuously improvise what we do on the product and in terms of information exchange. So Pratishtha, if I may just request you to run a slide deck. There are just 3 slides that we have. The first one is very briefly about Netflix, and the other 2 slides I'd like to share what services like ours can do, so that parents are better informed and better equipped on how they can actually just kind of in a very soft way, with a lot of partnership, with a lot of friendliness, regulate in a soft collaborative way what their children view online.
I'll just share.
Sure. And while Pratishtha does that, I'd just like to say that one of the key takeaways, that we realize of discussions like this is a joint stakeholder responsibility. It is not the government's responsibility to get inside our homes and tell us what we need to do. They are doing a job, what they can do in terms of framing larger rules, in terms of giving larger guidance. Individual companies cannot get inside anybody's study room or drawing room and see what is it that they are viewing. At the end of the day, it becomes a very important responsibility of parents and families to monitor, to see, and to know what is it that the children are doing online. And the COVID era has taught us way more, that how parents can be way more kind of integrated and stronger instruments of doing this than even teachers, who were always believed to be the primary source. So over the past couple of months, as more and more children have stayed online, as more and more children have stayed home, and so have the parents have become the primary and principal source of ensuring that they give the right direction to their children. Can we have the slides up, Pratishtha?
Yeah, just a minute. I'm just sharing it.
No problem. Okay, and while you get it on, in a super quick nutshell, we are a 20-plus-year-old company that streams entertainment content. It's a very simple subscription-based model where adults sign in, they pay up for a service, they create profiles for their children, and adults and children and people of all age groups can view content. It's a very simple service in the sense that there's uninterrupted viewing. So if one person starts watching a title on a phone, you can seamlessly shift to a laptop or another device. So it's like anytime, anywhere connected. What is very exciting about a service like this is the kind of information and controls that we are able to provide to parents. So when we talk about information, something very simple and very critical, which is needed is age ratings, localized age ratings, so that I as a parent know that, okay, as per my sensibilities and my family sensibilities, if my child is 13 plus, is 14 years old, she or he can only watch content which is appropriate for her or his age. Then there is content synopsis, there are descriptors which we can give, which we do give, there are disclaimers, there is ample disclosure for a parent to make the right choice. Can we move to the next slide, Pratishtha? Thank you. What is super important is, of course, that children are spending a lot of time online. They will continue to do so. And it is important to have kids and family based content, which is positive, which is educational. In fact, I don't know, we haven't met Amitabh yet, but he has a great list of titles which are actually extremely knowledge imparting to children, which can really invigorate and, you know, fill them with the thrill of science, knowledge, and the world around us. So there's a lot of right material to watch, which parents should not be depriving their children, but should be encouraging them to consume in the right way. A couple of options which exist, of course, is to create a child's profile, right? Uh, and there is a, yeah, so there's a child's profile that one can create so that when a child enters that profile, he or she is only exposed to age appropriate content, right? So create age appropriate profiles, use parental controls. These are very simple 4-digit codes which are set up on the service, which are very widely used by parents all over the world. And like my previous speaker said, if parents are smart, kids are smarter. They are able to hack parental controls and IDs. Well, it depends, and parents need to be smarter in this case, right? So my kids have not yet hacked the ID that I've put there, the 4-digit number. They've tried a few times, but they haven't been able to do that successfully. So I think it's a matter of building that trust, building that relationship to tell them, okay, this is a no-go zone for you. You're not going to watch this content. And of course, a big part of doing all this in terms of creating kids' profile, in terms of putting localized India-sensitive age ratings, in terms of having parental controls, in terms of being able to block titles. Like a parent can easily say, I don't want my children exposed to any title that has the word sex in it, or the word that has murder in it, or any word which has kill on it. So using those keywords, they can block titles. So here is a checklist that we prepared, got translated into multiple languages in the world. You can see some of them there, and there's a lot of collateral available in English and Hindi for Indian users as well. Also in Marathi, yes, 3 languages in India. Happy to do more as we move along. And this is a simple checklist for parents to tell them, okay, if your children are consuming content online, just ensure you tick these boxes. You create their profiles, you know what content they're viewing, you put parental controls, you can monitor their viewing hours and habits so that you know exactly which device, what kind of titles they saw, so that if you want to guide them, counsel them, you can do that as a very responsible parent. So I think all these tools and measures are actually put in place after a lot of investment, a lot of qualitative, quantitative research with parents, with teachers, counselors, psychologists, software engineers in place, so that we are able to come up with a service which is secure for children. And at the end of the day, having children view age appropriate content works great for every adult, every citizen, every society. Uh, what we also realize is, like what Mr. Tiwari was talking about, there are tools available. Fortunately, there is a big cluster in urban cities that uses them very generously, but our tier 2 cities, our smaller cities and towns, parents don't have that right awareness of how to set these tools, how to use these pins. They're very user friendly, and I think partnering with the right minds, with the right on ground partners, civil society, organizations like Social Media Matters, we should invest more and more focus in spreading this information so that more parents can use these tools which are available and deployed just for them. I'm going to stop here, but absolutely happy to respond to any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Ambika, for also highlighting on the point that there are parental control features, even the lock features are there, but awareness about it is very limited because as Dr. Tiwari also shared with us, there is a very small percentage of parents who are aware about these parental controls and the lock facilities which are there on social media platforms and OTT platforms, but awareness is very much limited. I'll come back to you about how we can actually do more awareness about it and how we can spread a word about it among parents and teachers about using these parental controls for their children and students too. Also bringing this point about the excess usage of internet during lockdown, where Dr. Tiwari shared that children were using internet for more than 4 hours a day, certainly because online classes were going. That was a major percentage of children using internet, but which was followed by using social media accounts. They're spending more time on their social media accounts, which brings me to a question for Samir on the point that children spend time on their social media accounts, which also they also happen to have incidences of cyberbullying over there. There are people are there to troll them out, irrespective of their age, and which also leads to their mental health. There is they are traumatized, and also which affects their mental health too. So I would want to put this out that your work majorly revolves around cyberbullying. Your organization works upon cyberbullying. So and there are many incidences of online bullying, and which is traumatizing children. How do you think that parents can help their children cope up with such incidences, or how can they guide them about it?
Thanks, Pratisha, for your question. And Ambika, I appreciate what you had to share about your platform and all the tools that you provide so that everyone can have an enjoyable experience and, of course, stay safe. And Manish, I also appreciated the research-based background that you provided to sort of set the table for our conversation today. Thinking about cyberbullying, the reality is that it happens, but it happens to a smaller proportion of youth than many might think. And so what I'm trying to say there is that we need to continue to focus on the positives of tech and social media, because already our youth, our children, are very hesitant, according to the research, to come to us as parents to discuss anything that they experience, whether it's a distressing message or some sort of harassment on a game, etc. And so I think that a level-headed approach that's calm and rational and reasonable goes a long way in inducing our children to open up to us more often. Now, maybe they are comfortable talking to us when they have some sort of drama or conflict with a schoolmate, just sort of, at school or in the neighborhood. But perhaps they're very hesitant to talk about these sorts of issues when they occur online, because many parents tend to have that knee-jerk reflexive reaction of taking away the technology access or the device use. And I'm sure some of my other colleagues like Stephen and even Ami might be able to bring that up as well. So that's the first thing that I want to say. Yes, cyberbullying is a reality, but I think that it occurs to a smaller proportion of youth than many think based on the media headlines. And so all parents must go into this with a calm head without being freaked out about these sorts of topics. So that's number one. Would you like me to share my slides?
Sure.
All right, yeah. Ami, when he was reaching out to me and telling me about this event that you all were having, he just asked me to try to take an approach about what are some things that parents can do. And you all are going to be talking about parental controls. I know Fosi, Stephen, they did some great research last fall involving parent tools and controls. So perhaps you'll be able to share about that. I wanted to take a more macro level approach. And then he also asked me, what more can social media companies do? So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. This will just take a couple of minutes, but my hope is just to stimulate more conversation in these areas. And I'll go ahead and hide my little floating meeting controls so you all can see the slides. So the first thing, this was brought up before, but what I tend to see is that, and I'm Indian. I am part of a culture which I love, even though I was raised in the United States. And so when it comes to the Indian culture, I'm a parent too, so please forgive me. We tend to be very sort of hyper vigilant when it comes to safety and security. I have, perhaps because of the way that I was raised, a disproportionate maybe amount of fear, generally speaking, because my parents were somewhat fearful about my safety and me going out and engaging in various risky behaviors. And so with that said, we tend to convey that to our youth. And I just think that's problematic and it shuts down communication. So what I want to see is us going online with our children in various ways that are helpful and not judgmental and not critical and not always trying to have an agenda where it's like, I see what you're doing here and I might use this against you down the road. No, our youth are very, very, very intelligent and insightful, and they will pick up on that. And so we want to try to go online with our youth, try to talk about the positives, try to convey to them that we are a fan of social media and technology. And so ideally, they can teach you some of the safety methods that they're implementing. And then you can perhaps offer some suggestions in a non-judgmental way to build out their safety settings, to build out their safety approach when they're interacting online. And of course, we should start early, not to say that, 4th or 5th grade standard is too late, but many of us, we might have toddlers or we know toddlers who are very proficient with the tablet, with our phones. And then I just think it's highly important for us to set the standard. We know that our children are sponges and they're always looking to see us and looking to learn justifications and rationalizations for being a little bit short or impatient or curt or rude. And we don't ever want to give them any excuses to engage in that type of behavior. Now, of course, we're human. We make mistakes. We might be a little bit short, curt with our son or our daughter or our spouse. But when that happens, we need to call ourselves out. We need to say, my goodness, I'm really cranky and irritable today because I didn't get enough sleep, but that doesn't give me the right to be mean to them or hurtful to them with my tone or with my words. And all of that over time, builds up certain standards in your family, which hopefully are planting seeds in the children about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And ideally, of course, that will translate to their online behaviors as well. I wanted to talk briefly about resilience and empathy. And again, I don't have a lot of time, but thinking about raising children, I'm raising my children. I want them to be resilient on some level, because the vast majority of cyberbullying is not severe. It is not major. It tends to be minor. It tends to be, a malicious comment on social media. It tends to be perhaps an embarrassing post or picture or video, things like that. I want my children to have the social and relational skill set to be able to shrug that off on some level. Now, of course, if they're more sensitive than others, that is okay. I was more sensitive than my peers, and I wouldn't want my parents trying to shake that out of me, because those sensitivities actually make me a more empathetic and compassionate person. They're a gift. But again, we want our youth to be deriving their self-image and their self-worth and their value system, not out of peer perceptions where you're popular one day, but then completely unpopular the next day. You cannot base your identity on that. Instead, we want to make sure their identity is based on something much more stable, such as what their future might look like because they're working so hard at school, such as their faith and spirituality, perhaps, such as their family and the standards you're trying to set there. Those are much more stable than peer perceptions. What we also find in our research, very briefly here, I just want to point out that those kids, those children with the highest levels of responses, when they were cyberbullied, they engaged in what we call pro-social responses. On the right side of the chart, you see that they reported it to the school. They reported it to the site or the app. They changed their screen name. They believed that they could control their online experience. They believed they had the agency and the autonomy to protect themselves from people who are trolls or haters or who are just generally jerks out there. Whereas those kids with the lowest levels of resilience, they did nothing. They just suffered silently. And I don't want my son or my daughter to just suffer silently and believe they just have to take it. So let's think about that as we're trying to raise our own children. And then when it comes to empathy, we obviously want to raise kids with sensitive hearts. And here's just a quick sort of story from my own life. I was raised in the United States, but thankfully we were able to come back to India. My family's from Mumbai. And so the moments that struck me the most profoundly, the moments that really broke my heart and sensitized my heart the most were, us traveling the streets of Mumbai and me seeing, of course, children who were so unfortunate, children who didn't have enough food, children who were malnourished, children who suffered from deformities because of the malnutrition. That absolutely shattered my heart. And to this day, I still remember those images, and it prompts me to care deeply about India, to do meaningful things across the subcontinent to improve people's lives, to care about others more generally. So my point here is that it is important for us to put our children in environments that will break their heart, that will, implicate their conscience and compel them to care deeply about others. Now, maybe what they see around them across the subcontinent no longer sort of triggers their sensitivities, but what can really shake them? And as a parent, I want to do that for my children. I hope that as your parents, you can do that for your children as well. And then as a result, we tend to see more empathetic responses, empathetic actions, both, let's say, at school, with their peer group, with other adults that they might interact with, and also it then sort of translates online with their interactions, with them standing up for people who don't have a voice, standing up for those who are picked on. When it comes to cyberbullying, they become more of an upstander and not a bystander, etc. So this is what we're seeing in the research as well. Last thing, and thank you for your patience. Social media companies, in recent years, they are becoming more and more responsive. Netflix, they're doing a lot when it comes to creating an experience where parents can try to issue and usher in as much safety as possible, as many protective mechanisms as possible. And I'm sure they will continue to innovate and iterate these features so that they provide parents, you and I, with the tools that we need. Similarly, social media companies, I believe, are doing a better and better job. Now, we might all say that there's much more room for improvement, and hopefully they'll continue to tap into AI and other technological developments in order to safeguard our youth proactively so that the cyberbullying doesn't even appear on the platform. And again, they've preemptively kept it from appearing. So that's wonderful. But what I need to see is them being very responsive to reporting, because all of our children, when they report, they want to know that the problem is being investigated, and hopefully the problem will go away so they can continue to use the platform or the app, the site, etc. It's in the app's best interest. It's in the user's best interest. And so hopefully that continues. I'll stop sharing my slides now.
Thank you, Samir. That was really, enlightening for us to learn the work you are doing and the kind of responses that you have received from your research. Very much that parents play a very important role when we talk about sensitization and grooming their children about their digital well-being. So yes, parents, and then also a lot of responsibility and accountability comes on various stakeholders as well. For all the attendees who are watching us today, we'll be taking all your questions towards the end of the program. Please feel free to drop in your questions in the questions and answers section. We'll be taking all the questions with the panelists towards the end of the program. With this, I would like to sum up the whole panel for today, where we talked about the issue of cyberbullying, which is very much which is very much increasing also on different social media platforms. We are receiving a lot of cases as well in India, and how we need to take preventive measures, how we can basically can curb it. Thank you, Samir, for putting highlight upon all these issues which are leading to cyberbullying and how basically what preventive measures can be taken. Thank you, Ambika, for highlighting about the parental control features of Netflix. But yes, we need a lot of awareness about it so that parents know that these features can be accessed through the platform, through their application, and they can restrict the viewship of their children. Thank you, Dr. Tiwari, for giving us insights from the report. Very much delighted to know what people are thinking about the usage of internet by their children. So this brings me to the closure of the first panel. I'm really sorry we have taken a lot of time for the next panel. I would like to invite my colleague Arnika for the next panel. We'll be signing off, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Pratisha. And in the meanwhile, as Arnika joins in and we have the next panel, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Ambika, who's been a great mentor and support as well in the space of digital parenting in India. Sameer, who has been a guide for many of us, doing some great work on cyberbullying. And I hope we can do some research in the future. Now we have a great panel with Mr. Ashish Jaiman, Stephen Balkan from FOSSI, and Mr. Vismay Basu. And all these three people have been amazing contributors in the space. And without taking more time, I would like Arnika to take forward the panel.
All right. Hello, all of you. It's so wonderful to meet all of you here. And just particularly for the first panel here today, I love the insights and the, kind of dialogue we had, because everybody spoke very specifically and we were not really doing any general conversations there. Ambika, you told us about those basic things that basic settings and controls that parents can really use and control and mentor. I would say mentor the viewership of their kids digitally. Also, Sameer, thank you for sharing those inside your work and the kind of strategies that you think would be effective to for parents and children both to digitally have a control on their own viewerships. Now, I'm delighted to welcome Marnika Singh, and I'm extremely happy to welcome our next panel here. We have Mr. Stephen Balcom, Mr. Ashish Jaiman, and Vismay Basu here with us. Just in very brief, I would like to give an introduction here. Mr. Stephen Balcom is the founder and CEO of the Family Online Safety Institute. We all know it by FOSSI. FOSSI convenes the top thinkers and practitioners in government, industry, and the non-profit sectors to collaborate, innovate, and create a culture of responsibility in the online world. Stephen, we all look up to you, really. We've had so many dialogues before we have met you, and it is a pleasure to have you here with us on this panel. Mr. Ashish Jaiman is the Director of Technology and Operations in the Customer Security and Trust Organization at Microsoft. Ashish's mission is to help customers to improve their security posture and defend against cyber attacks. Thank you so much, Mr. Ashish Jaiman. We are really looking forward to this tech side and what exactly is going on that sphere for digital parenting, as per se. Then we have with us Mr. Vismay Basu, who is leading this research particularly also, and also he leads research at the Institute of Governance, Policies and Politics. He will be sharing with us some of the insights of the research and also the methodology that was used in this particular research. If I may begin with Mr. Ashish Jaiman, I would just pose one question to you, sir, and that is that what do you think is the role that technology can really play in, say, digital parenting, or let us say educating parents and children both to safely there is a plethora of content on the internet, and everybody gets confused at a big point of time when you have so much to see. So what do the parents see, and how does technology come into picture when we say that we are here to help you for digitally parenting your kid? And the second part of my question would be specific to the deep fakes and the threat that it poses, because parents are struggling to educate their children about the menace of fake news, and because as it is now, it is very easy, it is believable at times. So what do the parents do to have this safety protocol for their kids and protect them from threats like deep fakes?
Yeah, well, thank you, Arnika, and thank you for the esteemed panel. One thing I'm here to learn as well, right? As a parent, as a technologist, and all of you, uh, I I'll start by saying that this is a very important issue, and thank you for bringing attention to this. Uh, and the earlier panel talked about one of the interesting thing that struck me was that who we are talking about are digital natives, right? Versus who, like, we are digital nomads. We're trying to solve a problem for digital natives who actually know technology in far more better and have a greater grasp than us, right? I think it was the video that you played actually were talking about the kids would always circumvent, right, the controls you put and whatnot. So I think technology do play a big role, but technology should not be considered as a silver bullet to solve this problem, right? The problem, I always talk about, like, it's a socio-technical problem essentially, which you're trying to solve just by technology. Technology is an enabler, technology is a tool, but at the end of the day, it is all about how we as digital nomads listen, understand, communicate with the kids so that they can be safe. We can create a safe environment for them. And then creation of safe environment is where I think technology can play a good role. Most of the content, obviously, in India, specifically is consumed on the phones. So tools and technology that can somehow provide a safer environment on the device that the kids consume information should be the first thing that we should think about. Now, when we talk about tools and technology, we also have to understand that just cutting access is not a solution, right? You like one of the things that we do is if we see a problem, we try to actually jump to a conclusion that just cut access to the phone and kids won't be cyberbullied, but that is not the case, right? Because as kids are smart, they will have access to the phone, either themselves or their friends may have access. So again, it's a communal problem as well, where you may talk to your kid and you may take access or put the right controls, technology controls on their devices, but then they may actually have access to other devices as well, through friends, through relatives, and through other means. So I go back to this whole idea of, hey, it's a communal problem. All the parents have to be on the same page, and then also understand what the technology can do. Now, the other challenge which I see is, I think as parents, when we think about technology, we have a limited scope, versus when kids as digital natives, they know technology, they have an unlimited scope, right? So what I mean by that is the way we consume information versus they consume information, it is very hard to actually, it should be the right, sorry about that. My apologies. So when we consume technologies, it's a bit different. So we have to also understand from their perspective on how they are using technology. And I think your research and what Ami was talking about, there is a lot of research that needs to be done, how they are consuming information through the technology of their choice, through the device of their choice, versus how we do it. And the last thing I'll actually end on that, before we jump on the disinformation, deepfake word, is education. I think we have to make sure that not only kids are educated about this issue area, but the parents are equally educated and provide tools and technology for parents to not only understand how how their kids are consuming information, but also what are the issues with that information that they're consuming. And most of the information, again, is good information. It's a very information, tools, technology are great enabler for the kids. They actually participate heavily these days in their learning and growth, but parents also have to understand the bad use cases or the nefarious actors, how they use information and technology, and should be taught essentially what the impact of that. The other thing I'll say is we should also think about having right kind of media literacy in schools as well. And we should start as early as possible, because I see elementary school, like, primary school in India, like first, second, third grade kids actually have access to phones. So I think we should start somehow, right? I think it should be something that comes from a public-private partnership kind of angle of civic education, but start early, start in the right way, both for the parents, but more importantly for the kids. That is pretty important. Technologically, I think Ranga, again, I want to pitch Ranga itself. Right? They are doing a lot, both in terms of education, but also providing tools and technology for a safe digital parenting to enable both parents as well as kids to not only understand the implications of bad information or bad tactics on their devices, but also what is the good of the devices and information is. But more importantly, I think providing the right tools in the hands of parents so that they can make decisions what their kids can consume and not.
Well, thank you so much for those inputs. And on this note, I'm happy to share that we have Mr. Mahesh Poddar with us, who's a member of Rajya Sabha. Welcome to the panel, sir. We did have your video played in the first panel here, and all the panelists and the attendees could hear some of your views. But happy to have you here live in this session. And I would just like to ask you one question that, what role of technology do you see in, when we're talking about spaces like digital parenting or mentoring our kids in this digital age? What all changes do you think can, technology bring in for us to make this a little bit more easier?
Thank you, and good evening to all. Just now when I was listening, see, there are 2-3 elements one can look at them in 2 segments. Like there is a segment of recipients, and that recipient may be the kids we are talking now. It can be students, or it can be a researcher, it can be many kind of recipients. And then there is some kind of authority. It can be government, it can be parents, it can be anybody who are trying to regulate it or control it or monitor it, whatever you call it. And then there is a technology provider. Then there is a content provider. Now what I was listening to Mr. Ashish Jaiman. So probably he was trying to say that the control has to be, it cannot be, he used the right thing, I think right word, technological, social problem. Okay, and which cannot be solved by technology. Even I feel so, that if you try to control it through technology, and the person whom you are trying to regulate or control or monitor, they'll be smarter than you. And there'll be always, within hours, some apps will be coming to find a way out. So, I mean, I feel that it is the content which can be regulated, because the content, again, can be regulated by the content providers as well as the technology providers. I think that is where I see some solution be there. Now, but then there is a lot of difference, and by what is permissible for me may not be permissible for you, or a particular society, or a particular religion, or maybe particular nationality. There can be divides, big divides on various issues. But then the environment in which you are going to operate, I think that should be the guiding factor. And the people who cater it, they should be taking note of that. They can't ignore it because, yes, I know that it is difficult to make rules and acts and regulate it. It's difficult because there are, again, divergent views. Even the court of law also has a divergent views on this. So I would say that it has to, if at all, it has to be volunteer, because if you expect a parents of 70-year-old who hardly knows how to handle a mobile phone other than receiving and making calls, now you expect him to be smarter than his 25-year-old kid. I'm sorry, it's a wrong expectation. And I'm sorry that the parents will crib about it, but they'll let it happen. Okay, because probably even if I want to try, I will fail. I know that I'll fail. So better I won't try. That will be the attitude. So that's one part, that if it can be regulated, if it can be controlled, if the people who can providing access to the technology and the people who give the content, these are the two segments I can expect some hope. Okay, that is one. Secondly, you said that digital parenting. Now, when you say that, okay, digitally managing the household gadgets, like from your office, you can switch off or switch on your air conditioners or the cooker or whatever. Now, can you do that for the sake of parenting? Probably no. I mean, you can give instructions, but the person who is going to take the message, how that is going to react, that particular gadget to whom you are sending the message, how that is going to react. And first and after that, do you know how to send the message? Do you again want to invest in the technology? Do you spend money for that? Probably no parent will be willing to do it. So end of the day, I find that this is a very, very challenging job. And today, the remotest part of India, the kids have access to mobile phones, technology, and obviously it has some very, very positive things to contribute. And that is why the governments of the day have been investing huge amount of money to provide internet accessibility to every panchayat, every railway station. I mean, all kind of things are happening, and the data is very, very cheap. It has been made cheap. Let me put it this way. It's not like petrol which everybody is using, but it has been made costly deliberately. So similarly, if they wanted to avoid it, they could have made the data also very, very costly, but they did not, because they see that there is a lot of positivity attached with it. But then there is a social cost which the society has to bear. So I think people like your organization can work out something on that. But I personally hope that the solution will come from these two segments, the technology providers and the content servers. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those inputs, sir. And I really, I'm happy to hear you here, and I'm glad that we have, people like you we can speak to, and really scale this conversation on a national level, because we feel that this is something that parents in the coming time would need more and more platforms to talk about the issues like this. And now I would like to welcome Mr. Stephen Balcom. I would just again say that, Stephen, we've met here, and this was a conversation I think we had, you and I don't know if you still remember me from that conversation, but about how it is very important to consider what kind of experiences our children having on the internet. And this was long before, and I am very happy to hear your thoughts today here. So my question to you is, Stephen, that you are in this sphere, and you've handled various cases. You have really been into this, creating a framework of what exactly can parents do, what could be the redressal mechanisms. So what is it? How do you think that, what kind of education do we need to deliver to parents and children both, so that they understand this space of safe digital parenting? And also because I feel that the kind of concerns my parents had that when I was growing up were different. I mean, parents today still have those concerns about safety of kids in the real world, but there are additional concerns of safety of children from the digital spaces. So what kind of education can we can really bring in, and what are the effective ways with which that education can really be delivered, can really be imparted, and who all can be those stakeholders who can help in scaling this conversation ahead?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And thank you to Amitabh and everyone who's put this on and organized it. Really appreciate it. And it's bringing back memories of my trips to Mumbai and Delhi a few years ago. In fact, I was planning to be out there again in 2020, but unfortunately the coronavirus stopped that trip. But thank you so much for letting me be a part of this very important conversation. I think I want to take a little step back, because I can hear the similar debates about who's responsible and lots of different suggestions. We try to frame it in something we call a culture of responsibility, where government, industry, law enforcement, let's not forget law enforcement, teachers, parents, and the kids themselves have different but overlapping areas of responsibility for online safety. Government obviously plays a role in terms of passing good legislation, good regulation. Our hope, though, is that governments around the world use evidence-based approaches. And it's so good to hear my friend Samir talking. His is a good example of good academic research that should be used by governments, both in our country in the US, but around the world, before laws are passed. Secondly, well-resourced law enforcement, so that the police have the tools to catch the worst actors out there. Oftentimes the police are working almost with their hands behind their backs, because they don't have the technological tools or the abilities that the criminals have. So that's, again, a role for government to enforce and to ensure that law enforcement is well resourced. Equally, though, industry plays an extremely important role to create easy to find, easy to use technology tools that parents and the kids can use. And I want to come back to that in a moment. But they are a very, very important part of the ecosystem. Teachers need good training in online safety, cybersecurity, and digital citizenship, so that they can convey this sense of responsibility, digital citizenship, to their kids. And parents, who are perhaps the hardest of all to reach, need to be empowered to confidently navigate the web with their kids. And I use the word confidence. I understand that, of course, for many older parents in particular, we call them baby boomers over here. They are, as it were, the first generation upon which the internet happened. The internet happened to me in my 30s, which to my younger daughter is inconceivable, that the internet wasn't around all the way from kindergarten upwards, which it was for her. So older parents in particular are struggling. We are seeing, though, a generational shift, and we saw that in our research last year, where millennial parents are far more confident with the technology tools, are far more willing to use those tools than, say, older parents. And finally, the kids themselves. And I think that, again, the work that Samir has done with students, with young people, is exemplary, in the sense that we need to give them a sense of agency, that they have some control over their digital lives. And I want to return to this issue about parental controls and online safety tools. One of the most fascinating things that we found in our research last year, and the research was to look into parental attitudes and use of parental controls. And we also asked young people what they thought about parental controls and online safety tools. And the distinction is parental controls are the filters, the blocking, the means by which parents stop their kids from doing certain things online, right? Online safety tools, on the other hand, are the reporting mechanisms, the blocking mechanisms, the ability to set your controls to private that teens and young people use themselves in order to stay safe online. And not surprisingly, teens' attitudes towards parental controls are rather negative, but teens and young people's attitudes towards online safety tools are very positive because they feel like this gives them some control over how they look, how they are seen, but also who can see them and interact with them. So they feel very positive towards that. So this is linked to another concept of as a child grows, you go from blocking to talking and from monitoring to mentoring. And what do I mean by that? Obviously, you're not going to give a 5, a 6, a 7-year-old an iPad or a phone without any parental controls whatsoever. That would be irresponsible. But as they reach teenagehood, obviously they're already trying to figure out how to get around the blocks. So you go from blocking to talking. You talk with your kids about how to stay safe. You talk to them about your family values, what is appropriate and not appropriate. And again, monitoring what they're doing to mentoring. Mentoring means, I remember someone put it, you're almost like a co-pilot with your children in terms of navigating this world with them. Kids love to talk about the online games that they play, the internet worlds that they go to. They love to show adults who care enough about them about their digital lives. And so if you enter that world with them, they're far more likely to not only to show you where they're going, but to share with you when they hit difficult problems or issues that they need to tell you about. But you can also talk with them and say, well, let's work together. Let's see, how do we report this to Facebook or to Twitter or to whatever? Let's make sure we take a screen grab so that we can show the teacher or we can show the police if it gets to be very, very serious. So do you see that shift in terms of the way in which we talk with our kids, not just telling them what to do? I just want to conclude with some thoughts. So we took our research that we did in the United States last year and earlier this year, with the help of Netflix, by the way, we did a YouGov poll of parents in 5 different Southeast Asian countries, including India. 3 in 5 Indians felt schools are highly responsible for online safety training. And 3 in 5, 58% of Indians felt the government was highly responsible for funding more awareness-raising campaigns. So that completely aligns with our thoughts here in the United States, that 2 of the most important things that government can do, funding for research and funding for awareness-raising campaigns. And that's something that we're supporting, a particular bill here in the United States that would fund just that. Having said all that, just over half of Indian parents felt that industry companies are highly responsible for simplifying guidance on using the parental controls. They feel, parents in the United States, but also in India, tell us they feel overwhelmed by the digital landscape, and we would agree with them. And last but not least, more than half of Indians felt platform safety centers are highly responsible for the ease of navigating and explaining settings. So for instance, earlier we saw Ambika was showing us what Netflix has created. Those kinds of landing pages that simply tell parents how to get through and use are extremely valuable to parents who are looking for guidance. So I hope I haven't overdone my time, but just wanted to get those points across.
No, thank you. Thank you for so much for touching upon those. I think these are some things that we don't really, at times realize that these are important, but if you start using them, if you start thinking about them, they really make a difference. Now, I'm happy that we have, and I'm just going to take this liberty of having this panelist conversations among themselves. So Mahesh ji, we have Stephen Balcom here, who's the founder of FOSSEE Family Online Safety Institute. And also we have Sameer Hinduja with us, who is the founder of Cyberbullying Research Center. So I think you've heard Stephen's views here. And they're both doing extraordinary work in creating safe spaces for children. Their strategies are incredible, and their methodology is very effective. So anything that, I would just like Mahesh to just, say a few words to the kind of work they're doing, or if you have any questions, sir, to them, just let's have a little bit of panelist interaction in here. Sir, you have to unmute yourself. Mahesh, you have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Okay. Yes, what you said, Mr. Balcom, that monitoring to mentoring, yeah, it's a good concept, and ideally it should be happening like that. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. You suggested two things for the government. One is to provide budget for education, number one. Number two, provide budget for research. Now, say I'm talking about Indian context. I'm sure you know that how big the country is and how diverse the Indian diaspora is. It's very, very difficult because the values what you have, some schools in Mumbai may not have the same values in some remote part of the country, or even in Mumbai for that matter. So how much money the government, because they don't know what to say and what not to, because each individual will be setting the limit based on his own capacity to tolerate this or not to tolerate that, and to tolerate, then how much to tolerate. So that is one thing. And then we have seen many times that the many public campaigns taken by the government, it doesn't give the desired result that, okay, yes, the budgetary provisions are made, the money is spent, and after that, the only monitoring what we see being done is how much money has been spent. What is the outcome of that? It is very difficult to know. That is number one, and it is hardly, even if it is the data are flashed. The second line will be the reliability of the data is not verifiable. So that's another issue. Similarly, research. I don't know what research you mean to say, but yes, if it is going to be a research, that who is giving what? See, I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, in Indian movies, the kissing scenes were not allowed. So ideally, if there has to be a romantic scene, and you know that the couple is going to kiss, then two flowers will touch each other, and that would be reflected as if they're kissing. Okay, and then everybody would know that what is happening. happened, what is happening and what has happened. Okay. But now the society is little more permissible. But when there is a cinema, there is a censor board, there's some regulations. So they have made some standards. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't know it is in text or it is in a perception. I don't know. I'm not sure that how do they define that what is permissible or what is not, because always I find some debates keep happening. But when the new technology informations are coming like OTT platforms and all that, without censor board, then even I had talked about it because the certain section of the society, urban society, particularly in metros, the 4-letter words can be accepted, but in by and large in the entire country, it's not accepted. And it's, even if it is among the friends in private, that's a different thing. Okay, but otherwise not. But when I saw some of the series of OTT platforms, I was shocked. I couldn't digest that abuses relating to women, particularly mothers and sisters, is being catered openly. And when the government tries to put some restriction on them, they say there's our freedom of expression. And it is, so everybody knows what happens in a bedroom. But do you cater it to the public for everyone to see that? No. That is the society. That is how the restraints have been built up. The different communities, even in the most liberal countries, even they have some restrictions. Why? Because probably it is needed. Now, to expect the government to do it and spend money, already they're hard pressed, and the way the government money is spent and utilized and the outcomes received, particularly such issues, I'm really doubtful. But yes, if the private companies, technology companies, they decide to spend money, they know how to make use of this money, and they can do wonders. This is what personally I feel. I am also coming from a business background. So I know that the private sector, if they spend money, they know they want to make every spending accountable for the outcome. So I feel you're right that monitoring to mentoring is a good concept. It should be happening. It can go parallelly, but the major outcome, if you want to have, should be coming from the people who provide the content and the technology which enables. This is what I feel, and they are capable, much more capable. I mean, not to be quoted, but I would say that probably they are more capable than the government agencies which are going to implement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Samir, Stephen, any reflections on this? Any thoughts that you want to share with us?
Samir, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll chime in. All of us are, dealing with these complexities and then just trying to figure out what we can do. And that's honestly what I come back to. It's, I would love for maybe other organizations, entities, businesses, government to maybe do more, but I can only control myself. I can only control to a degree my family and how I shepherd them and raise them. And so I'm just going to try to do my part. And then, hopefully others will similarly do their part. And then collectively, we'll see that maybe we've made a dent in this generation when it comes to promoting positive behaviors online. It sounds idealistic, but if I try to always be thinking about what everybody else needs to be doing, I just get overwhelmed and frustrated, and it leads to inertia on my part. So I just want to, again, continue to do what I can. And of course, I think these reminders, Mahesh, I think these reminders are important. Hopefully that implicates their conscience, and they also try to do what they can do in terms of what's in their control.
Yeah, and I would simply add that of course governments are always have issues with funding, and also, not always sure if the money spent is well spent. I would just put in a plea, and I'm sure Samir would back me up here, to evaluate whatever educational materials it goes out there or whatever educational programs gets created. You evaluate, you give that feedback back to those who've created the educational materials to improve, and you iterate just as software designers do to make it better. I agree too that industry is extremely responsible and very, very in a particularly good place to explain their own tools and their own technologies. The problem is that, quite frankly, Netflix or Google or Microsoft will only really explain their own tools. They're not going to, they don't feel a responsibility to explain all of them. And that's where organizations such as ours comes into play. So we try to cover as much as we possibly can. But ultimately, I do see government playing a role in providing some kind of resources to help parents and to make them feel like they have somewhere to go to ask the questions and to get some guidance.
That's true. Thank you, all of you, Mahesh, Stephen, Samir, for chipping in with your thoughts in this. I think this was also an important dialogue here. And I'm glad that this platform, this particular session became that platform so that we all could come together and share our thoughts on this one. Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Vismay Basu, who was the lead researcher for this particular report, Safe Digital Parenting. Vismay, we would thank you for waiting here. And in the end, I would like you to, share with us a bit, in very brief, the methodology used for this research, and also what are those statistics that have remained with you that are stuck that you found, or you were really shocked or amazed by those statistics. So just summing up the report and sharing with us about how did we come to this, come to the final numbers.
Thank you. So we'll start from this that. We started this working on this around November, late November 2020. So there were certain challenges regarding, you see, the lockdown was still not over. So ensuring a proper number of responses, that too over the internet, is always challenging. And the quality response, specifically when the enumerators are not there, remains a tough challenge in case of primary data collection. We'll come to it slightly later. The first problem, or the first challenge that we had to figure out exactly the objective of the study, and three major objectives that we zeroed in. First one was to understand the parental concerns. What are the major parental concerns regarding this, about their kids, about their sons and daughters' engagement over the cyber area, over the cyber zone. The next was to understand the parental experience in dealing with the technologies that is readily available there. There are lots of technological advances. There are lots of technological tools there. But the point is how deep is the entrenchment of those technologies among the parents, and is there any pattern into it? Urban rural pattern, city wise pattern, tier 1, tier 2 city pattern. And the third one was what is the expectation of the parents regarding the technology, big tech firms or other government agencies. So these three are the major objectives. Based on these objectives, we framed our research questions like what are major concerns. Now, having done that, we had created a questionnaire which was 21, which has only 21 questions. We tried to make it as brief as possible, and the sample size was determined to be something around 666, so that we can have a 99% level of confidence. Now, thankfully, we collected more than 802 interviews. And after, in fact, more than that, after data cleaning and all, we figured out that there was nearly 790 quality responses based on which we did our analysis. Now, analysis has been summed up by Mr. Tiwari, Dr. Tiwari already. So few of the things that I would really like to reiterate, maybe at the cost of repetition, that the report that Mr. Dr. Tiwari has presented, it was a summary. We also have a report, and if you go by the report, we have used techniques like chi-square, and also that we can establish relationships. The point is, there is it can be significantly established that there is a relationship between the parents concerned. Parents are concerned, and parents are concerned because of their because of the behavior of their sons and daughters in the internet. Parents are concerned, and parents are concerned about their lack of information about how to deal with this new situation. And this relation is significant. It is robust. Two or three things I will just like to mention, that 64% of the parents think that their words are overusing the internet. Apart from, so how did you have we defined this term overusage of internet? Say, for example, apart from the mandatory online classes and all, even if some student is using some kid is using more than 4 hours, then we call that as an overuse. So 60, according to 64% of the parents, their their sons or daughters are using it for more than 4 hours a day. That's a huge amount of time. And of all these things, I think that is the most stark, and that's where from we should start thinking. So that's all I had. Rest has been discussed in details. So I will, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for putting in so much of hard work here in this report. It is because of you that we are here on this platform talking and chatting about everything. To all the panelists, thank you so much for joining in. This conversation has been really holistic. We have talked about concerns, issues, and prospective solutions from all the levels, from the user, industry, stakeholders, civil society, and even the government. So this really made this a holistic conversation. Thank you for giving in your really valuable inputs and being really open about what are your thoughts on this. Probably I would say a new sphere that we all have entered into, that we've realized and have started working on together. I see a lot of us working together on this, because I think if we work together on this, all the stakeholders come together, I think we'll have better solutions and better platforms to talk about how can you digitally mentor your kids in this new age. So thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to Pratishtha, Amitabh, for also having me as a moderator here. It was a great conversation. And now, if I may invite Amitabh Kumar from Social Media Matters to deliver a vote of thanks.
How should I put this? It's a big day for Ranga, and I'm so happy that we had people who we look up to, whose work we follow, who have been our guides in this space. Stephen Balkan, I know I sound like a fanboy, but I am a fanboy of his work. Similarly, Sameer Hinduja, from explaining what cyberbullying is to me, about 5-6 years ago, and Ambika, who's been such a great support from Netflix, Mr. Mahesh Poddar, a parliamentarian giving us so much time. We also had a long one-on-one discussion with him. Mr. Ashish Jaiman, who's looking at it from a completely different cutting-edge artificial intelligence perspective. Dr. Manish Tiwari, Dr. Vismay Basu, who have been leading this research. This is the first step in a very, very long distance that India needs to cover. Digital India is a dream of many Indians, our government, but we need to take solid steps for it. Who is responsible? Well, when it comes to a child, they say you need a village, and in this case, you need the digital village. So for all the internet tech companies, the government, activists, and most of all parents who are the focus of work of Ranga. It also takes a village to put together this event. So it wouldn't be complete before we thank the complete Ranga team, starting from the youngest, Mr. Vishal Chauhan, Mr. Anurag Singh Vora, Mr. Ashutosh Singh Rathor, Mr. Rayan Yunus, then going into the team, Vikram, who's been behind the scenes, running the complete tech show perfectly, Pratishtha for organizing this amazing event, putting it all together, Arnika for great moderation and guiding us through Zoom. This is our first event on Zoom. Dr. Shada Das, who has been leading Ranga's research in the guidance of Mr. Dr. Manish Tiwari, Mr. Dr. Vismay Basu, Ashish Jaiman sir, who has been, helping us set up Ranga, the platform, and also the business side of things, Mr. Venkatesh Iyer, Mr. Sibi, Rakesh Mathi. So this is what it takes to have this event. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you in the future, and hopefully doing more researches like this and making more impact. So once again, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to all our viewers. Please spread the word, get it out to all the parents, and we would love to interact with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have good night.